What would you say if I told you that learning Japanese is actually an incredibly easy thing to do, and this entire time you've just been doing it wrong? You wouldn't believe me, would you? That's a stupid thing to say. Japanese is very, very hard. But I've been doing it for a little while now, and I've made enough of my own mistakes to know things to avoid and things to pursue when it comes to effective study. So today I want to share with you my top 5 plus 3, which is 8, tips and bits of advice of things to check out or things to do when studying Japanese to hopefully see more results quicker. One of the first things you'll notice about Japanese is that there are actually 3 alphabets: hiragana, katakana and kanji. Now if you compare this to something like English, just one of these alone seems like a lot. Hiragana has 46 characters, which are the phonetic sounds of the alphabet. Compare that to the 26 characters of English. Katakana has the same amount, 46, and has all the same syllable sounds. It just is used for loan words, English words or foreign words that aren't inherently from Japan. Now kanji on the other hand has upwards of 50,000 characters depending on what dictionary you look at. But thankfully the Japanese government has structured a list called the Joyo Kanji list, which consists of only 2,136 kanji. These are the ones used in all mainstream media, books, games, magazines and all that kind of stuff. If you want to read anything in Japanese, you need to know all 3 of these alphabets. But just going by the statistics, clearly hiragana and katakana are the easiest to learn because they're the smallest in number. Learning 2,000 kanji is a little bit more difficult and it's more of a long game situation. If you're just starting Japanese, this is what I recommend you should do. The first week should be dedicated to learning solely hiragana. This is possibly the main alphabet of the language. The kanji are very complicated and do make up the whole bulk of it, but almost everything can be written in just hiragana alone. Then the next week should be learning katakana. This will be quicker because the symbols are different, but all the phonetic sounds are the same, so you're basically learning a second symbol for the same sound that you've already learnt in the first week. Learning hiragana and katakana should take no more than 3 weeks if you're a bit busy and you can't fit in the study every day. But if you can dedicate roughly 20 to 30 minutes a day to it, you should have no problem. Starting on the 3rd week, you need to start learning kanji. This is a long process, and to learn all of the Joyo kanji, it can take anywhere between 2 to 10 years depending on how dedicated you are. But no matter what time frame you go for, that's a long process, so you need to start it early. Try 10 a week just to start off with. If you find that you're going a bit faster than expected, then you can ramp that level up. But you learn more, just a few a week, and you'll quickly see that you can start to recognise more and more characters as you progress. So about a minute ago in the first point, I said there are 3 alphabets in Japanese, but actually there are technically 4. And the 4th one is romaji, which is the Latin alphabet, which is used to spell out all of Japanese words, but in a readable English format. Now, Japanese people don't ever use romaji, so my point here is don't use it, don't ever use it. The only pass you get on romaji is the first 2 weeks when you are learning hiragana and katakana. If you want to read the first few chapters of a book, say like Genki, and you want to read through the examples, but you're still learning the basic hiragana and katakana characters, then you will be excused from learning romaji. But after that, it's redundant. Don't use it. It's going to slow you down. The quicker you can familiarise yourself with hiragana and katakana, the faster your fluency and reading will become. So don't do it. No one likes romaji, and that's a true fact. I'm sure this is going to come as a surprise to nobody, but languages have a lot of words. But what might surprise you is that 70% of the Japanese spoken language is actually made up of only 1,000 words. That means if you learn 10 words a day for 100 days, just over 3 months, you'll be able to say and I suppose technically understand 70% of all spoken Japanese. Now unfortunately it's not as simple as that. If you go up to 85%, the word count goes from 1,000 to 5,000. As the less frequent the words are, the amount of words is exponential and gets larger and larger. If you go up to 95%, you're looking at around 10,000 words. But if you're starting out and you focus on those 1,000 words, that will cover you for most basic conversations, and you'll at least have a basis to work around when reading through books and trying to converse with people. Also, there's a book I'd recommend checking out. It's called A Frequency Dictionary of Japanese, and I'll leave a link for it down in the description. If you buy this book, or you already own it, or you own something similar, then what I would recommend is just a few pages at a time, starting from number 1, work your way through the words, and just mark off any words that you're not familiar with. You can then put this into your Anki deck if you use Anki, or make a flashcard out of it, but it means that you're covering all of your core vocab from the most common down to the least common. This next point is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I see a lot of people complaining online and saying that they don't want to pay for study materials and they want to learn Japanese 100% for free. I'm not saying that studying for free is wrong or a bad idea, but a lot of these books that you have to pay for, they're usually structured in a much more cohesive manner and are geared towards students and written by teachers or people that are far more knowledgeable in the subject. And I really believe that by reading through books that have been properly written and curated by professionals are going to lead to more successful study for yourself. I also hear a lot of people saying that they can't afford it. It's £40 or $50 for a textbook, which is a lot of money, I will admit, but you really have to see these things as investments for your future. And also, these books, you're probably reading them for a year and you can always use them to refer back. So the next time you're thinking about going to the cinema, or you're going to go out for a few drinks with pals, or you want to buy a new video game, if you just don't do that one thing just once, then that will probably cover the cost of a new study book. And the study book is going to have a lot more value than a fleeting experience like 2 hours in the cinema watching a film. This next point was probably my biggest downfall when I first started, and I know a lot of people struggle with this as well. What I'm talking about is trying to translate English into Japanese on the fly as you're talking. A lot of people tend to try and translate every single word in the sentence. Now the problem with that is that Japanese is often, and usually in conversations, is simplified to a point where a lot of the information has already been brought up before is omitted, and one of the main offenders is pronouns. In English we have a lot of me, I, they, this, that. In Japanese you only say I once, and unless you've changed the subject of the sentence, you don't have to keep saying I. So when you're learning Japanese, just try to get used to the fact that pronouns aren't used in every sentence, aren't used every 3 words. If this is something you're struggling with at the moment, then I would recommend checking out a TV drama or an anime or a movie in Japanese that's got a lot of kind of casual conversation dialogue, and then just looking at the subtitles in English and Japanese and just comparing the two. You'll see that a lot of the words in English often aren't translated over to Japanese, and the Japanese sentences often seem a lot shorter than what you read in English. Okay, so this is probably the most important thing to keep the enthusiasm high, and that is to enjoy yourself. I assume you're learning Japanese because you want to be able to read manga in Japanese, you want to be able to understand Japanese music lyrics, or you want to watch movies in Japanese or play games in Japanese. These are all goals that will have you enjoying things at the end of the road. So why not make the journey enjoyable as well? As soon as you know the fundamentals, you can actually start learning from games or anime or all that kind of good stuff. So if you want to break up the grind and the dullness of the daily routine, studying grammar, studying kanji, then what I recommend you do is use your Japanese that you've learnt so far and try and do something with it that you enjoy. Perhaps trying to understand lyrics from Japanese music, maybe you want to play a game in Japanese, or you want to read some manga. You probably won't see much results to begin with, but because you've got an interest in the subject matter, it'll keep your focus engaged for much longer, and you're more likely to retain the knowledge of the learned vocabulary, the kanji, or the grammar points, because it's linked to something that you're actually passionate about. A word you'll hear a lot when you're studying a new language is immersion. Now this means constantly surrounding yourself with this language in any form possible. If you live in Japan, this is very easy. You can turn the TV on and hear Japanese, turn on the radio, and so on and so forth. You leave the house, everything's in Japanese because clearly you're in Japan. But if you don't live there, then how are you supposed to achieve this? A popular thing that a lot of people try is to actually turn the system language on your mobile phone to Japanese. This is good because it turns also all the apps to Japanese as well. So for instance, you go on Facebook and instead of a like, it's got an ine button. Just a stupid example of how you can switch the language and kind of use something that you use daily, probably anyway, and get a bit more use out of something so mind-rotting as social media. Also, in this wonderful age of the internet, there is actually ways to listen to Japanese radio in whatever country you're in. So you can get radio apps on your phone, or you can go on websites for things like NHK and Tokyo Radio, and you can just stream them live on the website. This also works for TV. On Netflix there's a whole ton of Japanese TV shows, and you can just like leave them running in the background, you know, just while you're studying or while you're cleaning the house or something, and just leave it running, and you might just pick up words kind of floating around, and it just kind of helps with that immersion feeling. Now the last point is very simple, but it's something that I believe a lot of people struggle with, and it's certainly something I struggled with when I first started, and that is actually having the courage to use what you've learned about Japanese and just say words and sentences, and say them with kind of conviction without that nervousness and hesitation to get the point across. I find that when you say things hesitantly, people are less likely to understand what you're saying because the pronunciation's not there and you don't get the right rhythm for the sentence. You can actually say quite a lot by only knowing a small amount, so don't be afraid to try and use what you've learned and make those mistakes, because it's the only way you're going to improve. I often find that Japanese people are very, very kind when dealing with someone that is trying to learn their language, and most times they're actually quite happy to meet someone that is learning Japanese, so they're more patient with you and they're willing to try and help you through the sentences and guide you and maybe help you learn a bit of new grammar as well. Okay guys, so that's it. That is 8 bits of advice. I hope you found that useful. You might have already known all that, or you might completely disagree with me, in which case get down to the comments and tell me I'm wrong. I'm not a Japanese teacher, I'm very far from being a master, but when you make these mistakes it's very easy to look back, analyse and see where you've gone wrong. So, you know, I enjoy just helping other people and trying to steer them in the right direction before they make those mistakes themselves. If you like this video, then please give it a big thumbs up. You can only give one. If you can give 2, that's fine, but just the one will do. Share this video and please subscribe to Kantan Japan for future videos. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as £1 or $1 a month, and you'll also get access to Patreon exclusive content, including a more in-depth analysis of all the 8 points I covered in this video today.